Let me show you how to integrate your MindStudio AI agents inside of an n8n workflow. If we look at the documentation, you'll notice that we will need a few things before we are able to do this. The first is your agent ID, second is your API key, and the third is your agent must have launch variables set up inside of the start block. So you can set up your workflow simply by clicking on the start block and entering all of the launch variables that you're going to be using. In this example, I have a form that is being shown to our user on n8n, and this is a client intake form. And in the intake form, we are collecting some information. We're collecting the company name, the rep title, the company info, and we're going to be using that inside of our AI agent. We want to pass those values from the form through the agent. Next, we'll need our agent ID, and we can find that by clicking in the root folder, and under the metadata section, we'll find the agent ID here at the bottom. And then lastly, we will want our API key. We can find our API key by going to our dashboard, and then you can find it under developers and API keys. And you can create a new key simply by clicking on create key. You're going to need to name the key, and then you'll get this token. That's a secret token that you can click on and copy when we need to use it. So let's go ahead and jump into n8n, and we'll begin by creating a new node. And the node that we'll need is the HTTP request node. And from here, you'll notice that we have some inputs from our form submission, and we can start to set up our HTTP request simply by clicking on import curl. Now, this will appear blank by default, but we do have inside of our documentation a code snippet. If you continue scrolling down the guide, you'll see this curl command, and you can copy it. And then inside of n8n, you can paste it in and click on import. And this will set up most of the HTTP request for you. We'll just need to fill it in with some additional details. The first is our API key. You'll notice that we have this value here under the header parameters, and it says bearer your API key. So what we need to do is simply go to our API key. We will copy it, and then back inside of n8n, we will paste that in. The next thing we do as we continue scrolling down is setting up our JSON. And the way we do that is instead of using the fields below to specify the body, we will need to use JSON to specify the body. And that's because we have another code snippet in the documentation that we can copy and paste into this field. So we can simply click copy, then back inside of n8n, we'll click into this JSON and we will paste it in. Now we have the ability, if we click on this little button here at the bottom right, to look at this in a better view. And from here, we can simply start swapping out the values in this pre-configured code snippet. So you'll see we have our agent ID, we have all of our launch variables, and we will need our workflow name. So let's go ahead, we'll fill these out one by one. First, we'll grab the agent ID, and we'll find that again inside of our workflow, inside of our AI agent under the metadata section, and we can copy the agent ID, and then we will simply replace it here. Next, we will add our launch variables. Now, this snippet has 2 by default, but you can add as many as you'd like. I have 4, so I'm simply going to copy this. I'm going to go to a new line, and then I'll paste that in, and now we have 4 variables instead of 2. And then I will copy over the names of each variable. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll go into my workflow, and then I will copy over all of the variables. So we have the company name, we have the rep name, we have the rep title, and we have our company info. And so now we have our variables set up. The next thing we need to do is match the variable to the values that we want to pass through. So these values are coming from earlier in our n8n workflow. You can see that we have our previous values from previous steps here on the left. we can simply click and drag whatever we'd like into the values. So I'm going to double click and delete this value. And for the company name, I want to use the company name that we are gathering from the form earlier in the workflow of n8n. Okay, the rep name is going to be the full name here. So we'll go ahead and bring that in. The rep title is going to be their role at the company. So we'll click and bring that in. And then for the company info, we have a question that says, tell us everything we need to know about your company. And we can bring that value in. And we can see the entire object that's getting passed through here on the right-hand side. Additionally, we'll need to make sure that we include our workflow name, and the workflow name is simply the name that we're using here. So you can see it says api.flow. So I'm just going to change that out and make sure it says api.flow. And there we go. We have this entire JSON expression all set up. That wasn't too difficult. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and test this step out. And when we test this step, we will see that our AI agent will begin running. And we can see that here by going into the debugger, and we can see that there is a new run happening here. And when this run completes, it will return some information. It will return some of the sales collaterals that we are hoping to use. Now, inside of our workflow, what I have set up in the end block here is some specific JSON output. And this is going to make it very easy to find and use later in our workflow. So I have this thing called collateral. I'm using the result from this generate text block here. And that's going to be returned to us from this API call happening inside of n8n. You can see this is now finished and it has completed. And inside of n8n, we get this output here. Now, when we continue to scroll all the way down, we should be able to find that collateral. So here at the very bottom, we have this collateral, and we can use this later on in our n8n workflow. So let me go ahead. I will back out of this, and we will bring this Google Sheets node closer to us. And when we run this Google Sheets step, you can see I have all of this entered already because it's coming from the form submission, but it's very similar. You're going to click and drag the values that you'd like to send to your Google Sheets. And in this case, I have this all connected. We'll go to this bottom one. And just to show you how this works, we're going to bring in the result from that HTTP request. So if I scroll down to the bottom of this, I should see the collateral. So here we go. There's the collateral. Again, I can just click and drag this into the field that I want it to fill out. And each of these fields correspond to the headers of my Google Sheets. You can see I have company name, rep title, about, and the collaterals. And so now we know the HTTP request is working. Let's go ahead and test this step to make sure all the data is being filled out correctly. And once this finishes executing, we should be able to see all of these columns now filled in with all of the information. So here's the company name, the rep name, all of this is information being pulled in from the intake form. And then there is the collaterals that are generated by the AI. So we're able to track all of this. Hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.